New York has a budget of $110 billion a year.
You're dealing with a little corruption here right now?
Are you kidding me? $5 million bathrooms?
They're arresting you.
This is chaos at its best. Your bureaucratic nest. They pocketed somewhere between $1 to $5 billion. We're equal opportunity here. Democrats and Republicans engage in this equally.
At a deeper level, you think we're a pretty corrupt country overall? You see the city like no one else. What's your take on the city right now?
Thieves continually get smarter and figure out new ways to purloin the public purse.
It's the same as 1985.
The Tweed Courthouse. Is it worth more than twice the state of Alaska?
They got the name brands out here.
Yeah.
Prada.
They call them ghost apartments.
I didn't think that was going to be the story today. In the great city of New York, Benjamin, thanks for meeting up.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, right?
DC, Chicago, New York.
Yeah.
New York is the city that invented grifting, it invented corruption. But what separates it from Chicago, it could stare itself in the face with sobriety and say, we can do better. It both invents the greatest corruption, the worst, the smartest forms, but then it figures out ways to improve it and to make this city really run. So we'll start in 1870s, we'll go to the 1970s, and we'll go to today. And we got a nice performance going on.
We got the performance, and right over here, I just spotted this view. We have the Statue of Liberty. Look at that.
This is right as people are getting off the boat. We got folks here doing the entertainment. And Peter, this is what happened in America's early days, because Fort Clinton, Castle Clinton is right over there. Prior to Ellis Island days, that's where immigrants came in. They got processed. And as they were coming off the boat, there's a guy named Boss Tweed. He runs the city machine during the time. His agents are coming down just as like they're coming off the boat here and they know to get them. Boss Tweed's folks are coming down and they say, you need a job, you need a place to stay. And I don't want you minding what we're doing in City Hall. And they figured out how to define corruption in New York. And we'll talk about that soon.
Good guys.
Peter, you remember when we went through Chicago?
Yep.
We tried to think about how do we define corruption and how do we look at how well is a city operating?
Right.
So let's do that with New York and just kind of go through some of the top line numbers.
Okay.
Crime is generally down about 4 to 5% across the board. Homicides are down 40 to 50%, somewhere in
40 to 50?
40 to 50%.
Wow, that's
high level
great.
down. Youth shootings have gone way up. That's largely due to a change in state law about when teenagers go to family court or when they go to adult court. It's more permissive now.
Okay.
So there's not as hefty of consequences. So there's been some uptick, unfortunately, in that. And they're looking at getting rid of that change in the law. Pretty low levels of satisfaction with New York City performance. About 20-25% of the populace is satisfied with the services that are being provided. Education concerns, public safety concerns, and the quality of what's being done in the city are the number one complaints here.
Okay.
When we think about New York, it's really important to think about how unique it is. It has a budget of $110 billion a year.
Wow.
That is more than 46 states in America. Only 4 states have budgets that are larger than the metropolitan New York City
Okay,
area.
so greater metro,
Yeah,
which is roughly around 20 mil.
somewhere in there.
So Benjamin, before we get going on this, you're gonna come up with information today. Can we put all the sources down below
We will.
in the description?
Just as we did.
So when you drop these crime
Yeah.
numbers, you're gonna give me the sources on everything?
Everyone, I'll
Okay.
give you a source, and I can guarantee you on 1 or 2 of these, I will mess something up, and we'll get comments on it.
Someone's going to comment, which they should.
They should.
I like that.
Absolutely.
The goal here is truth. I hope you're not pushing a political angle, but I don't think you are.
No. And as we noted before, I come from a background, I'm a Republican.
Yep.
I do a lot of fun constitutional litigation, but I acknowledge good faith arguments from the left. It's what our founders did. Hamilton and Madison didn't agree on all aspects of the Constitution,
Right.
but they had good faith arguments about it. Corruption's not a partisan issue.
Right, so there is a demographic in the country that wants truth as the North Star. They're not with a party necessarily.
Right.
for example, I don't have any allegiance to any of these people. I'm in a registered independent. I'm going to go with whose policies I like better.
Yeah.
That's it. And I'll switch quickly. I'm crossing over. It's not like sports teams for me.
All right. You're with a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans are moderate, many are independent, and the goal of what I do is not to ramp up and be a cheerleader for my side or to double down on political controversy, but to educate you and for everyone to walk away with a little more information, a little more history and principles.
Okay, and your background, for those that don't know, First Amendment attorney.
I do constitutional litigation and mostly First Amendment work across the country, usually in the federal courts. And I studied corruption as part of this. I was counsel to chairman of the Federal Election Commission. I've worked in the area of campaign finance and anti-corruption measures. So I'm in New York a lot. I've got four cases pending here now.
Okay.
2 in federal court, 2 in state court. So I'm here a lot. I know a good deal about the stories, but I'm not a resident, so I can't offer that part of the tour. You'll have other folks who do that.
Yeah, right. They're arresting you. What's up, man? How you doing? Good. All right, mate. Are you from Aussie, mate?
No, England.
Oh, England. Sorry, that was... Okay, how's New York for you guys? You having a good time?
Yes, amazing time, yeah.
You're loving it?
Yes,
Brilliant. We just came from Chicago. Chicago's cleaner.
I think it's different. This is chaos at its best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like London on steroids.
Yeah.
Oh, so what's more thriving right now, New York or London?
Probably here.
Okay. Okay, our Uber's here. Take care of you guys. Have a good trip. All right, where are we off to, Benjamin?
We are heading to City Hall Park and to Tweed Courthouse.
Okay.
Thanks. Hello. How are you?
Take care. That's what's so awesome about New York. Guys like this from Tajikistan, just cool guys. I remember going to his country many years ago. They were so good to me. But it's just everything, you know? It's like, it's hard to put into words. You have to feel it.
Right.
The energy here.
You're in 8.5 million people, you're in a giant economy, and all the world is at your fingertips right here. And we were just talking about in the car, it attracts both hustlers and con men, but it also brings really smart people, the reformers, some of the greatest minds about how do we clean this mess up. Let's turn on in here. We're gonna go into City Hall Park, and as the name suggests, City Hall is here, the mayor's office is here, the 51 members of the city council meet here. But right near City Hall is the Tweed Courthouse, and that's a fantastic story that not everybody knows about New York. So Boss Tweed was called the grand sanctity of the New York Democratic political machine of Tammany Hall. These were Native American terms, but they often used these to dress themselves up as authentic Americans. They weren't part of the aristocratic tradition from Europe. And so they would use art, imagery, and titles that were common to Native Americans. So we're just going to go by the fountain here because I think it's beautiful. So Boss Tweed was simply famous for figuring out, as we talked about, and we were down by the Clinton Castle, immigrants are coming off of the boats in record numbers. This is the start of the Gilded Age in the 1860s, 1870s. We have an influx of people from all over the world coming here. And they need jobs, they need to figure out how they fit into society, and a smooth political operator sent his team down to figure that out and put them in different parts of the city. And at the same time, to be able to build an expansive machine that said, if whenever you do business in New York, whenever you're doing something for the city of New York, my team is getting at least 15% of that coming back. So we've got City Hall, but just adjacent to it is the Tweed Courthouse. Originally budgeted at about $250,000 in the 1860s, New York paid more than twice of what we paid for the state of Alaska. So that was about $14 million, which equates to today's dollars of about $250 to $300 million. Carpenters came in and they would make over $100,000 during that time frames period money. in rooms that had no wood. So everything was padded, there was no work, or it was excessively billed for hours. 15% of it going back to the Tammany crew. They pocketed somewhere between $1 to $5 billion among their little gang running New York. Now, Boss Tweed was eventually indicted on 204 counts of conspiracy, embezzlement, all these sorts of things, using public funds for private purposes. And he tried to flee to Spain. He took a boat to Cuba with his mistress, and then he went on over to Spain. But here's how you capture, how you stop corruption. Journalists of the day, New York Times and Harper's Daily, they were both writing about him. New York Times from an intellectual side, but Harper's Daily was doing weekly comic cartoons for immigrants who weren't as accustomed to the English language. And Harper's Daily was published in Spain as well. So when he arrived in Spain, the authorities recognized him immediately, captured him, and brought him back to New York. He was found guilty in the very courthouse that he had built through his graft in corruption. New York, although it starts with these schemes and figuring out ways to bring thieves into public office, it brings some of the greatest minds who start thinking about things we take for granted today. How did we get civil service exams in government? It came out of the Tammany Hall affairs.
Okay.
How do we get the idea that, well, maybe the public needs some transparency about budgeting and about monetary figures from government? That came out of Tammany. And so they started to build in these protections in the law to be able to provide some level of accountability to the public. And I think that's a great thing. To give you a sense of how freewheeling it was at the time, one of his associates, George Washington Pluckett, his famous quote is, "If I see an opportunity, I take it." There's no harm as long as money's not coming out of the government budget. Pluckett went around and bought up swamp parcels in different land that he knew, because of inside information working in government, would be beneficial in the future. So he knew a park was being built somewhere, he knew a new financial center was going up, he'd buy up all these little parcels. Today we would think of that as usually violating various ethical provisions and against good standards of public service. But it was openly celebrated in the Gilded Age. And so we're left with this today. I believe there's pre-K and educational services that are here. There's some other governmental offices that are in the building. It's a beauty, of course, to see.
Beautiful
but
here.
Is it worth more than twice the state of Alaska?
That is wild.
I think Alaskans might say no.
Do you want to check it out?
Yeah,
Want to see if we
might
can go
be
inside here.
open.
Okay, so I like your approach, Benjamin. You always go to historical bedrock before you talk about
where we are. Yeah.
And everything comes from something,
Yes.
right?
If you don't understand the patterns and the principles, you'll never solve them today. It's
Okay.
not about the people and the particular drama that you see today. There's a long history of how it got to where it is. And by understanding that, we can do better to stop it and have responsible government today.
Let's see if we can get in here. All right, that's not gonna happen.
Well, we're not feeling a sense of openness or transparency that I think the reformers from the Tammany Hall era might have said would be good for the public to be able to enter a government building. This is the Department of Education, administrative offices. You'd think maybe the public could come in and take a tour, but
Yeah, maybe they have, to be fair, they might have tours, right? We don't know.
they might.
But yeah, she wasn't having it. Look at that beauty. That's a Frank Gehry building. It is so awesome down here. I forgot how great it is here.
This is the New York I know, because this block is where I spend most of my time. Why? Well, this building right here is the federal courthouse, the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York, as well as the Second Circuit Federal Court of Appeals. I have a journalist free speech case going on in the Southern District. I have a Second Amendment challenge to New York law at the Second Circuit right now. And as we move over to the next building, we have the state Supreme Court. New York calls its trial level courts Supreme Courts. It's not the Supreme Court as you might think of it. It's their lowest level court.
So being the corruption video it is with the corruption expert, how are our courts functioning overall? I know that's a wide question, but say at this level.
I think they function admirably well. And in particular in New York, the Southern District, the prosecutor's office here, has taken a very aggressive, no-nonsense stance when it comes to corruption and dealing with bad actors. So we'll talk about folks like Sheldon Silver, who was the Assembly Speaker in New York, and all the corruption and dishonest dealings he was engaged with, and courts deal with it well. But the side you don't want to hear, the side your audience doesn't want to hear, the First Amendment also puts kind of limits on what people might want to be made corrupt or illegal, but there's a balance. So I think from the popular eye, there's probably more that people think should be done. I think they're doing pretty well.
Thank you.
So all the beauty of New York also has a downside. If we look forward where we're going here, you can see some extensive scaffolding on the side. They're doing a little work on the building. Other areas of New York, you can see literally blocks worth of scaffolding and these what we call sidewalk tents to protect your head in case something drops down. New York has 8,000 scaffolding projects going on simultaneously. There's over 500 miles of scaffolding in the city of New York.
Seriously?
It's far greater than any other municipality across the United States. So you have to ask yourself, is there something that's really special about New York buildings that maybe it requires more work and more scaffolding? Or is there something else that's going on? Well, there's been a lot of complaints about this. We got to look in pretty deep into the system. Looks like we have a perp walk coming up, by the way. I'll wait a second.
Something happened here, going to court?
Yeah. So what we need to do is look deeper. And so New York, we know, is heavily a union-favored city. To be able to do work here means higher labor costs. It has pretty stringent standards compared to almost any other municipality about what housing and building safety codes look like. And their calls for inspections are far more frequent than, say, Chicago, Los Angeles, anywhere else in the nation.
Okay.
So if you are owning, say, this building here, and you have to have these inspectors come in every so often and tell you that you need to replace some facade and do stonework and the like, that's an expensive amount of money that goes into the uptake of it. What if you had a way out of this, right? And a way out.
Give me the way out, Benjamin.
Here's a way out, right? And I'm sure there was a creative lawyer like me figuring this out. Get some scaffolding put up. You're in compliance temporarily with the law. You don't have to spend the hundreds of thousands on the stonework. Well, your 3 months run up. Could we get a 6-month extension? Could we get another 6 months extension? There are scaffolding projects in New York, Peter, that have been here more than 10 years. And it's likely because it's so expensive to do the work, and there are rumors, these are unproven, that the people who do this contracting work, the scaffolding work, put political pressure within the city hall to allow for this flexibility so that they can rake in this money and that the property owners don't have to put out that money. So on paper, it looks good. We have these stringent safety codes that are in place. But if you can delay it 7 years, 10 years, and just put up scaffolding and pay a fraction of the cost, well, you get this. You get 500 miles of scaffolding.
We don't know for sure that's the case here.
We don't know what's going on. This is an example of scaffolding.
But it is...
It's widely reported.
It is Monday.
Yes.
Nobody's working up there.
And so because I like to be prepared for your tours, I do a pre-walk. I got in last night. I did about 3 hours of walking around. I walked this morning, too, during work hours. I haven't seen a soul on any scaffolding project.
It looks almost permanent. It looks like it's been here a while.
Yeah. It detracts from the beauty and the architecture of New York.
Right.
Maybe it deprives New York citizens of some of the public safety that they've voted in to have in their buildings.
Here we go. All down here. Yeah. Yeah, this has been around. You can see it's just...
It's got cracks.
Through. We're in Chinatown now.
We're just touching Chinatown. We're going to go a few more blocks forward to the old police headquarters.
All right, guys, take a little break to talk about today's sponsor. As we all know, navigating the news is very challenging these days. Every journal has an angle, either leaning one way or the other. And this is what makes figuring out what's going on extremely difficult. So what's helped me is the app and website Ground News. With Ground News, you can see who's covering a specific story and who isn't. Ground News will get you out of your information silo with tools like its blind spot feature. For example, the story, Mamdani defends $60 million city-run grocery pilot on CNN. That story is covered mostly by the right. Or the story, Murdoch's succession deal gives Lachlan control through 2050, buys out 3 siblings. That story is covered mostly by the left. So often it's not what's being covered, it's what's not being covered, and Ground News helps you see this. Use Ground News to get all sides of every story, be better informed with access to a vast amount of worldwide sources in one place, and see who owns what media and follow the trail of where the money is coming from. I'm a big fan of Ground News. They've been a long-time sponsor of this channel, and I think you'll like them too. Go to groundnews.com/Peter to check them out. Subscribe through my link below in the description so they know that I sent you to get 40% off unlimited access. That's right, 40% off if you use my link down below. Now back to the story.
So we're jumping forward 100 years from Tammany Hall days, where we passed reform and we tried to clean up city government, and did in many ways. So it's the police headquarters until the 1970s. But in the 1960s, a police officer named Frank Serpico starts coming to the New York Times and other newspapers, suggesting that nearly all of the New York Police Department is on the tape. And it sounds so outrageous and so conspiracy-oriented that newspapers largely ignore him. So for half a decade, he takes copious notes, he gets evidence, gets the receipts of what's actually going on, and he, along with another police partner, come to the New York Times and they run a story. And it gets to the point of asking, Peter, are you a meat eater or a grass eater?
I like grass-fed beef.
So kind of a mix.
I like it, yeah.
At the time, in 1960s New York, the New York police divided themselves between what they called grass eaters and meat eaters. Grass eaters were folks, police officers, who said, you know, if I give somebody a pass on a parking ticket, I get that $5, that $10. They got little trinkets for every little bit of thing that they did.
Yeah.
The meat eaters set up extensive rackets.
Yeah.
So these guys are similar to the mafia, in that you open up a floral shop in town, police department officer shows up, and he says, you know, it's welcome you to the neighborhood. There's been so many accidents and crime here. It'd be a shame if anything happened to your little floral shop. But for $100 a month to the police auxiliary fund, we'll be sure to make sure you're taken care of. And they ran these sort of rackets extensively. The later review is about 90% of New York's police were on the take, or as they called it at the time, on the ham.
Okay, how long did that go on until?
So it's busted open in the early 1970s, right? So this is when the New York Times
that late
runs the story.
Wow.
We have what's called the Knapp Commission, where we bring the officers forward. There's wide-scale investigations that are done. They bring in dirty officers who admit to what's going on and how extensive and how deep this is. And again, a lot of the things that we think of as common sense today happened because of this, and because New York took the time through the Knapp Commission to study this. So, better civil service entrance exams for police, identifying who's more likely to be on the take, who's an officer who's more likely to do that. Common sense things like, we need to boost up salary. The higher government salary goes up and you're able to pay for your family and pay for your expenses, the less likely you are to be on the ham, to be on the take. And to enter into these kind of things, to create real consequences if you break the law. Beforehand, it was a lot of wrist slapping. Development, if you've watched a police show on television, you see internal affairs and that kind of a thing. We think of that as common. It wasn't common. New York invented that and be able to create a separate internal affairs unit that could withstand political pressure, wasn't subject to the normal police chain of command, these sorts of things. So it was really big steps forward to take care of that.
Okay, so that existed in the early 70s here. I've lived in a few places in the world. I've traveled extensively. I was just in Colombia this last winter. We had to pay off a cop.
Yeah.
My buddy was driving, got pulled over. It was more like, give me some mo and I'll just leave you alone type stuff. So I always thought living abroad and living in Ukraine, I lived there for 4 years.
Right.
You could see the corruption in your face, as in the bridge that's not completed that started in 1993, right?
Yeah.
Or Chernobyl, which the international community has put $2 billion towards in decommissioning it, and they've built a sarcophagus and they've, decommissioned a lot of it, but the project is supposedly supposed to go on another 40 years. So when I'm 87 years old, that's supposed to come to a close. Who knows exactly when? But my point being is, I always thought in the United States, yeah, there's corruption, but like so much less. And with the petty on the surface stuff, you don't see it as much unless you point it out, like the scaffolding.
Right.
But at a deeper level, you think we're a pretty corrupt country overall? I mean,
I think, well, what I mentioned at the beginning, New York, a budget of $110 billion a year.
Yeah.
Whenever you concentrate money in a particular place of that size, you are waving a flag to attract thieves and attract charlatans to come in. And I gotta hand it to New York City. It's really good at figuring out, how do we stomp this out? How do we stop it? And the key is not to think that you can rest on your laurels, or that the reform you passed in 1870 or 1970 somehow cures corruption for all time. There are always new tricks, there are always new games. It's ever vigilant, staying on top of it, and it's voices from the left and voices from the right who come together and figure out solutions to all of this. And New York, it's the place that does it, and I have a pride in seeing that. And so long as you stay on top of it and you can be as dynamic as the thieves, I think we're doing okay. And don't expect it to go away.
Better than Chicago?
Yes.
How about Los Angeles?
I think better functioning than Los Angeles too, in terms of debt, in terms of performance for education. I don't know crime off the top of my head. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, do you know what these are? Is that a water tank up there?
I have no idea.
I've never noticed that in New York
I've not
before.
seen it.
I've seen them all over the place now.
Chicago.
Yeah, it's interesting.
How the fuck I'm supposed to know, bro?
Maybe
Your
ask
friend.
him. Maybe ask him.
Street pressure goes up 5 stories, about 85 feet.
Ah, there
about
you go.
85 feet. Anything above that,
You need your own water
the
tank.
water tank gets pumped up and then it gravitationally. This building is one of the most famous buildings in the city.
This is.
One of the original 10 landmark buildings. It was a department store back when it was opened in 1858. It was like the Baumwood Teller, Saks Fifth Avenue.
Oh.
Because Broadway this was like the hot stretch.
Yeah.
Uptown didn't happen yet.
Oh, yeah.
Happened very quickly.
Yeah, but at the time.
But at the time,
Right.
there were the store Brooks Brothers and Lord and Taylor, the original,
Right here.
right here on Broadway. It's called Howitt, H-A-U-G-H-W-O-U-T. So he was a merchant. It's modeled after some building in Venice.
And you were saying off camera, you're dealing with a little corruption here right now in New York.
Fire department summons. And generally, the fire department was the good agency. But with COVID, nobody stopped working at the office, and they put everything into some computer system.
Yep.
And it keeps spitting out the same summons no matter how many times we show them the paperwork that we resolved it, and they're trying to get $1,000 from me. And then they keep asking
You're building here.
This is my building. You have a sprinkler system which is required to be inspected, pressure tested. It's called a hydrostatic pressure test.
Right.
They determine whether the pipes will hold the pressure if there's a fire, and the fire department brings in their pumpers and they attach it to the standpipe there, and it pumps up the pressure in the sprinkler system. So you're required by law, besides to have monthly and quarterly and annually, and there's a 5-year test, which involves an inspector from the fire department and not just the sprinkler company. And he came and we did it. I have the paperwork, I notarized it, we signed this document. And what's really terrible, actually, to start it off, they used to notify you have to do your 5-year hydrostatic test. This year they came in on January 6th, a Russian woman inspector, and they issued a summons instead of a notification.
Wow.
So you start off being in violation of the law, even though you have all of 2025 to do the hydrostatic test. So that just starts it off. So of course we do everything by the book, because you're going to have problems if you don't. But it's just, I'm literally on a carousel of getting notices saying violation has been cured. No further action is required.
And then you get a new violation.
You get a new violation.
Yeah.
And then they say you didn't show up for the hearing.
It's like a schizophrenic.
Even though it says you're not required to show up for a hearing.
And these are the benefits of big government protecting you.
Yeah, this is
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I've become
Well, you don't pay many taxes there, so it's probably not new,
what?
right? It's pretty cheap here in New York.
One of the few municipalities with an income tax.
I used to have a gallery here, but I couldn't afford to subsidize it anymore. They raised the taxes
Yeah.
to such a point that there's no culture in Soho. I mean, Soho had 200-300 galleries until the 90s, and then the taxes just
Push the galleries out.
push the creative enterprises out of Soho. You know, it's still thriving as a commercial district, but retail stores are hammered. You see them go out of business all the time.
Okay.
You know, because who could afford? When I charge for rent, you'd think that I would have a house in the Hamptons, but it all goes to the government.
Right.
All of it.
Right.
All of it.
It's all siphoned.
It's all of it. But I have my loft and my studio and my memories, and I could sell the building and live in Del Rey or someplace. But I'm just a masochist.
In addition to police corruption in the 60s, as it turned out, New York City was gravely in debt to the tune of several $1 billion. It was tinkering on bankruptcy, publicly threatening that. It reached out to the federal government for a bailout, to which President Ford at the time famously said that they could drop dead. He later reconsidered that, and there was limited federal aid for New York. But the question is, didn't we cure all the problems in 1870s, Tammany Hall? Didn't we get to the root of all this? And my insistent lesson to everyone is thieves continually get smarter and figure out new ways to purloin the public purse. And we have to be, those of us on the right and those of us on the left who care about this issue, have to be ever vigilant about this. So in the 60s, those who weren't so honest of government actors figured out a couple tricks. The first one was they figured out what is the reporting scheme for when we have to show the public the exact money that we spent. And if we wait till just right at the end period time, we can do a balloon payment to a...
Love those.
If we wait to the end point of a reporting period, we can show a clean book to the public, but then maybe we spend an additional $25, $30 that won't show up for some time. And the public won't get rallied and upset about it, and it looks like we're good, clean actors. They also figured out this trick: create quasi-government, private, corporate service organizations. So if you're the Department of Education and you're running deep in the red and you don't want to show that, you create the Department of New York Education Services Corp. Then you shift all of your debt into the Corp entity. The Corp entity has no reporting obligations at that time under state or city law to be able to show that. So New York Department of Education, it's running in the black. It's doing all these great programs and it's doing so well. Meanwhile, this mountain of debt is growing. So you see this promulgation explosion of all these little corporate government entities hiding debt from the taxpayer. And so a result of all this, they had, I think it was the Council of 71, a wide array of smart reformers, lawyers, retired judges getting together and figuring out how do we stop this in the future. Looks like we got a street market of some sort.
They got the name brands out here.
Yeah.
Prada. Is this stuff legal in New York?
I don't know the exact status of this.
Right, like do you need permits or no?
Yeah, I don't know that.
Doubt it.
The better question is that stuff legal?
Oh, the product?
Yeah.
He's telling me I can't record.
Yeah. Well,
I'm like,
you'd be wrong about that.
Sorry, dude.
You're wrong about that. So the point of all what I was just discussing, 1960s, they figure out new creative ways to hide debt and to be able to be slow in reporting what actual spending looks like to the people. And so they put firm limits in the 1970s on use of these entities corporate entities that could hide debt. They increase transparency requirements. They require more timely reporting of all money that is spent. And if you have these balloon payments, that they're reported more quickly to the public.
Benjamin, it's just a process of someone very savvy and corrupt figuring out how to maneuver the system,
right,
and then how fast can the system catch up with it, change the laws, and then how fast is the next opportunists go down that direction. It's just a constant game, huh?
And I think there's a usual set of actors, because if we go back to Tammany Hall, if we go back to Frank Serpico, what do we have? We usually have a whistleblower, someone who possesses extraordinary courage, someone who's willing to put their life on the line. Serpico, by the way, after he testified and provided all this evidence, he was called to a heroin sting site. He was shot in doing the investigation, left dead on the floor, seemingly dead. None of his fellow officers called for backup or for a paramedic to come rescue him.
Oh, geez.
It was a butcher, local businessman who found him. He just barely lived. That was how disliked he was. So he became a pariah in New York at the time. And it takes whistleblowers, but then it takes media, honest media, whether it's a left-leaning organization like the New York Times or a right-winger, James O'Keefe, any of these sorts of entities, to be able to take that story and run with it, show it to the American public. And then you usually have commissions of individuals, lawyers, political activists, folks who have been embedded in this, who can sit down and figure it out. Now, I mentioned before I'm conservative. I'll give credit to the left. I think New York's done a good job with their comptroller and some government agencies in giving them a little more power to root this out and to be able to find corruption. I'm not a big fan of government power or government authority, but in this area, you do need some aggressive watchdogs. And sometimes it's not just the press and not just the courageous whistleblower. Sometimes you need that sort of comptroller, auditor, and the like. So
the comptroller, auditor right now, are they doing a good job, would you say?
Based on what they've pulled out about spending during COVID and spending on the asylum migrant supposed crisis, I would say they're doing fantastic. We'll get to that pretty soon.
Okay.
But they've uncovered some interesting stories. And again, it goes back to, okay, we thought we cured this in the 1970s, 50, 60 years ago. Turns out
it's just whack-a-mole.
Not so much, because there are always loopholes, there are always exclusions, and it just takes some clever folks to figure out how to maneuver around it. Now, we are approaching 56 Leonard Street. It's no surprise to anyone that rents in Manhattan and real estate prices are dramatically high. Manhattan is one of the highest prices in the nation, averages $5,000 a month for rent in Manhattan. We get some buildings like this which draw attention because these tend to be very pricey pieces of development, and they're often done in cooperation of a program called the 421A Real Estate Affordable Housing Tax Exemption. So a developer says, I want to build a luxury unit, and I'm going to agree to somewhere, somehow, build some affordable housing units in New York. Now, when this particular building was developed, it gets a certificate of 421A compliance. So it gets tax breaks, and the people in here have less taxes as well. But it lost its 421A exemption because it wasn't actually building affordable housing anywhere in New York. Okay. And there's been a series of these sorts of developments, including 427-1, which is Billionaires Row in Manhattan. That's up by Central Park. And there, we're looking at in the billions of lost revenue every year that go to New York because of these tax breaks. They allow rather wealthy individuals to have less tax exposure when developing these. These are often empty. They call them ghost apartments because foreigners often purchase these up as a sort of investment property. And you come by at night and you'll see in a lot of these properties that the lights are not on. They're not occupied, or they're occupied a couple days out of the year. There have been suspicious people involved in money laundering and these sorts of things, using it as an investment property, flowing money in, flowing money out. This property in particular has had a lot of listings that the properties get sold, get bought, get sold, get bought, get traded, get flipped. Okay. And not a lot of people actually living there. So this is something that's sort of stooping people in New York City because everyone wants affordable housing. They want access to that. They don't think that foreigners buying up property and land seems inherently fair, nor do tax breaks where they don't actually deliver affordable housing seem fair to the people in New York. And why are they sitting vacant? Why are they sitting empty most of the time? And is this the way you want to run a country? Now, a lot of the details still have to, not a country, a city, a lot of the details still have to be filled in. So anything that's modern, we got to be careful about making any allegations about what's happening and occurring.
Sure.
But affordability and housing accessibility is a really important issue, especially for friends on the left. That's a particular issue they're focusing on. So this is just one example in New York. If we went up by Central Park, we'd see Billionaires Row. Again, something that's, I think it's 1/3 full. It's full of these tax exemptions that the comptroller of New York and other good government groups have said, this is costing the city and state of New York billions of dollars in revenue every year. Yeah. They're not outperforming and doing their obligations, and we need to do better than this. Now, personally, I don't have any problem if you're a billionaire or 100 millionaire and you want to live in one of those 2 days out of the year. I do have problems and concerns if you're taking money out of the public dole.
I mean, it's a problem all over the country, right? Housing.
Yeah.
Especially young people. How do you get into your starter home? Now, New York, you're not getting, or Manhattan at least, there's no starter home that you can buy into here, right? Everything's probably in the millions to start, right?
Yeah. You get out of Manhattan for your starter home.
You have to get out of Manhattan. Yeah. But I do have a problem. Maybe not, New York is such an international place, right? So I don't know how it would work here, but I do have a problem with parts of the country where a lot of foreign investment comes in and buys up real estate stock.
Right.
Like mainland Chinese money can buy land here. There's no way we can invest in real estate over there.
Yeah.
And if the prices, the more demand, the more the prices go up. And if we let the world just park their money here, then it drives the prices up for our residents. And that's the problem, right? Because you want people to have skin in the game. Yeah. You want them to have a place they can call their home.
Right. And states are exploring options on that and limiting ownership, piercing LLCs that buy land under mysterious conditions.
I was just in Palisades in LA. There's some foreign investment money.
Yeah.
Buying up lots.
Right.
I think it's fundamentally wrong. I'd say that if we had an abundance, okay, I could understand, but we don't, and it's a big problem in the country.
And it creates instability within your neighborhood. It creates doubt about who your neighbors are. It creates real problems for being able to get that starter house, get that mid-level house, whatever it may be. And so
I think both sides would come together on that one, don't you think? The populist element of both sides would come together on that.
I think so.
Right?
And then you're going to test how far you can go with that in the courts, right? Because you could imagine a system that is too severe and makes it almost impossible for a foreigner to come live somewhere or do business. But it's probably likely that you can impose some modest restraints and limits on how much they can invest and how extensively they can in a particular neighborhood.
I mean, there's a lot of that in Miami too. A lot of Latin America parks its money in Miami.
Yeah, right.
Buys apartments.
Yeah. And then you get the ghost apartments like you have here.
Yep. It's hard to find a restroom here. Even at Starbucks,
you couldn't find
no restroom.
Peter is having an emergency. He needs a bathroom.
I drank a lot of black tea this morning. I need a restroom.
And this is actually a weird issue in New York. So again, and I don't have the answers for all this, but something smells suspicious. Okay. Because it has a profound lack of actual public bathrooms that are available. When the comptroller and other government agencies have done audits, they've often found that up to 2/3 of them are either closed or they're missing things like toilet paper, soap, the water doesn't work. things that you would expect.
Public restrooms.
Public
here.
restrooms.
I don't see many though, to be honest.
There aren't many.
Okay.
And so as they've worked on an initiative to build more, here's the more curious thing. It can cost on average somewhere between $2 to $5 million per new bathroom that they create. But when you look at other cities, they can do it on the cheap end, somewhere around $250,000, on average around $500,000 to create a bathroom. Now, not all of that is me creating some conspiracy hoax here, because New York has heightened cost of labor due to union presence,
Yeah,
so
sure.
that adds in. So let's tack something on for that. We have different transportation costs, or being able to come in and bring heavy equipment and machinery incurs additional costs for contractors.
Yeah.
So that brings things up a bit, but probably not a scale of 10 times the price.
Okay, so
something's happening.
3 to 5 million for just like a men's
standard,
and women's
ugly public
like
bathroom.
in a park type
In a
thing.
park. And New York doesn't have them. They know this, so as I've mentioned, they are doing a program to deploy more public bathrooms at exaggerated prices.
Okay.
But there's been appropriate pushback on that. Are you kidding me? $5 million bathrooms that they're not penthouse like suites, that they're just average.
Right.
We have to get this under control. So I don't know what all the pieces are there, but my guess is there's a little bit of corruption. There's probably a little bit of some padding going on there
Heavy
somewhere.
padding.
And I think as they investigate, New York will do what it does. Smart people will get together and they'll uncover the other smart people who weren't so ethical and figured out this program to get rich off of building public bathrooms in New York. And we'll have the details.
Congratulations. Guys, city's looking better.
Thank you.
Yeah, how's it been?
Pretty good. Been okay.
Rough? More trash these days or less?
We're consolidating cash.
Consolidating?
Yeah.
Okay.
On one. Like it's supposed to be.
You see the city like no one else. What's your take on the city right now?
Trying to get better.
Yeah, I guess.
It's getting a little better?
Trying to get a little better.
Always.
It's always improving.
Yeah.
Always.
That's what New York's good at. It's always improving. Yeah. You guys have an industrious, innovative spirit.
Without you guys, the place stops. So thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We got to do the traffic. We have no choice.
Those are sort of the, I hate to say the word, quote unquote, invisible jobs, right?
Yeah.
But that keep a place like this
It's
going.
yeah.
Without
key.
that, nobody's doing anything.
key.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Where was the bathroom? I didn't hear
Oh
all
man,
the...
I don't
At a
think
park?
that's happening. Oh, maybe there. I've been to this park. Success, Benjamin.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made it. That took a while to find, but what a cool park. What park is this? Do you know?
Columbus Park Court.
Oh, yep. I've done a pretzel since last New York trip, so I'm gonna give that a go. Hello, sir. Can I get a pretzel? Yep. All right, here we go. Want some pretzel, Benjamin?
I'll just take a little bit off if that's
Yeah.
okay.
It's the same as 1985. There's no difference. Probably the same company. They come in a pallet, frozen. But
Yep.
Nice.
Taste about that. No. So we're going to jump into modern corruption because every era gets a new iteration. So we're going to start in the early 2000s. So we're equal opportunity here. Democrats and Republicans engage in this equally. Let's start with a Democrat. Early 2000s, we've got Sheldon Silver. He's one of the long-standing speakers of the New York Assembly. He prides himself a real hero of the people, particularly in his ability to help cure cancer and to be able to bring government research and funding to be able to do this. So Sheldon Silver in the background is doing special deals, and he's saying to doctors, I need asbestos patients. So if you refer your asbestos patients to my law firm that does personal injury claims, I can get you government funding grants. So he routinely was able to get $500,000 cancer grants to particular doctors. in exchange for this lucrative business coming in. He took in over $700,000 in that particular scheme alone. He did another set of enterprises where he worked with another law firm that would do tax appeals. So if your property had been overvalued or errantly valued, they would work to do that. And so he would get business to come in guaranteed to this particular law firm, and he got a cut out of that. In exchange, he was working to make sure that these people were treated decently by New York government. So he was tried here in the Southern District of New York in federal court on money laundering, on corruption-based charges, fraud, embezzlement, and the like. And he served his time and eventually died. But we have a Republican as well, Dean Scalos, who had a son who needed work. If it sounds similar to a recent president, it should. And this time it was Dean Scalos, a Republican who from Long Island, who said that when constituents and powerful people came to him, how would you like a new consultant on your business? I've got a son, he does excellent work, and
He's an expert in every field.
And just sign him up as a phantom consultant for your particular business, and we'll take care of your tax property problem. We'll take care of your zoning issue. We'll take care of that licensing problem or that summons that keeps showing up, like the gentleman told us before. And so all of a sudden, his son, I think it was Adam Scalos, keeps showing up as this phantom consultant everywhere. He too was tried in the Southern District of New York for corruption-related charges, money laundering and the like, served his time. Now, out of these two stories, New York learned some rules, and they've just recently enacted some reform to help pass this, because a lot of this came to light around 2005 to 2015. Okay. And now we're seeing the legislative changes come into being. So one of them that they just passed and is highly controversial is that no legislator can have side business income that exceeds $35,000. Mm-hmm. In other words, being a legislator is a full-time job, and your time is expected to be there.
Yep.
Now, there are good arguments to say, it doesn't pay enough, and we need to be able to do our side work that we regularly do to be able to live in a place like Manhattan or in New York City. So it's under judicial review. It's being challenged in court. But similar restrictions have passed scrutiny in other states.
Let's just say the two cases you talked about, both the Democrat and the Republican, if they, let's just say, happen at the same time in 2025. So if you were to read the New York Times, you're not going to hear about the Democratic case. Right. And if you're reading the Post here, you're not going to hear about the Republican case. Right. And that's the world we're in.
That's unfortunate.
Right? Or there's going to be a strong bias or skew, or in the Times, the Republican guy is going to have his eyes wide open, and then the lights like flooding out his face, so he's like pale white, and the Democratic guy is going to look better, and vice versa. And that's the world we're in.
We've lost so much, right? Because as we noted a few times in the video, corruption's not a partisan issue.
Right.
If you're caught putting your son into favorable business positions for graft purposes, that's wrong, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, whether your team's doing it or not.
And so the public, it's very hard for the public to navigate this stuff and really understand it unless they want to put a ton of time in. And people usually have their go-to media sources, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to stick to those, and the average person is going to stick to those and not crossing over to the other side and trying to understand it from both angles.
Yeah.
That's the problem, huh?
But there are new apps, and I think one of them advertises on your channel, and I just might
This is true. I wasn't even
grounded news.
Yeah, they're
right
okay.
There.
Well,
and I happen to find them favorable because
they
do the blind spot feature.
I like it.
And you can get that because I'm a Republican. My news trends to the right, but I have a subscription to the New York Times like you do. I read well thought out, good positions from folks I wouldn't ordinarily agree with because that makes me a better person. And sometimes my tribe is wrong. My camp is wrong.
Totally.
And
I wish the right had a Times type publication.
Yeah.
Actually, I wish there was just one publication that sought truth as the North Star, right? That would be better.
Yeah.
But the New York Times, they do have a lot of intelligent people there. Their user interface is excellent online. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there, but any of the big stories, I know how it's going to be covered. It's pretty clear. Like border, for example. If it's the border, they're going to talk about the 1 out of 10 legitimate asylum claims in the last 4 years versus the 9 out of 10 that are economic migrants.
Right.
And so they just choose the side, and if you're only in that space, well, that's what you see. Then you think the other side is insane.
Right.
How do they not get this?
Yep. It seems to be working, unfortunately, as a business model.
It is the business model.
It's an emotional trigger
Yep.
to get people scared and get them worked up about the enemy marauders or about how good their team is.
If the Times did a pro-Donald Trump story, they would piss off their audience.
Yes.
The majority of them.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And vice
Right.
versa, say Fox does a pro-Biden story.
Yeah.
Maybe, the CHIPS Act, like the factory being built north of Phoenix.
Right.
Maybe that's a plus for the country, right?
Right.
They're not going to talk about it.
No. They talk about food deserts. We live in news deserts of sorts.
Right.
And they're self-selected and self-imposed. And we have to be willing to shake ourselves out of that. And there's a lot of good data on cognitive dissonance and how difficult it is for us to do that. But it's the most worthwhile thing in the world if we want a good government, if we want a better system that we can all create
agreed.
together.
All right, so you had one more case you wanted to talk about.
I want
right?
to check one thing, and then we will chat on that. 1 second.
And guys, Benjamin is so organized here. One of the easiest guys to make a video with. He knows all the locations. He knows what to say. It's pretty much me just following with a camera, asking a few questions. But I gotta say, it's interesting getting into his world because for most of us, we're not in this stuff all day long, and he is. And so that's what I try to do is find these people that have the expertise. I'm saying you have the expertise, Benjamin. Fair to say? How you doing?
I saw you on the video. I've been watching you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. What's your name?
Henry.
Henry.
I've been watching your videos all over.
All right. Well, we got another one coming for you soon from New York.
Too bad you can't go in there, right?
Oh, what's that?
That's a federal building where bad stuff happens.
Yeah, that's right.
We're talking about corruption today, Henry.
It is a corruption tour.
This was the corruption of morals.
Oh, it is.
That's where the ICE is in.
Oh, the ice.
Yeah.
Take people and disappear, evaporate, tell them, sorry.
Well,
Evaporate, there's a lot of protests out there.
yeah.
Well, good.
Thank you, sir.
Good to meet you. I see.
I appreciate it. Okay, so you had to bring this one in. This is where people love or hate you, Benjamin, right?
I'm going to be fair on both sides because I think neither one is particularly interesting. Neither one really reaches to the heart of true corruption that we should care about. But it is an example of how different tribes get worked up about actors in different camps, and we shout corruption. And that's the case of Donald Trump and the case of Letitia James. Both involving litigation here again in New York and federal court. Of course, litigation against Donald Trump was that he routinely overinflated the value of certain business entities for loan purposes, and that he undervalued them for purposes of tax compliance. So, at least at the early district court level, he lost, and that's currently on appeal, and they'll figure that out. Legal experts weighing in on it say that you usually have a great deal of latitude in terms of that estimation, that he relied on professional accountants and appraisers to be able to do that people routinely have a difference in how you report that for tax purposes versus banking purposes, and that everyone's doing that. And if Donald Trump is guilty, then most of New York business owners are likely guilty too. People get very riled up about it because Donald Trump is a lightning rod sort of figure, and some folks really hate him and other people really tribally love him. But the question is, does it go to a deep systemic sort of fraud where we're using public power or we're using public money to effectuate public policy in some distorted way? And that's not the case. This is a battle of forms. What did you mark on a form that you submitted to a bank? What did you mark on a form that you submitted to tax authorities? Now, this gets turned around because Letitia James, who is the Attorney General of New York, she got caught in two instances. One, She had 2 properties, and she had marked a property in Virginia Beach as her principal residence. Well, the New York Constitution says that you have to live, if you're an office holder, you have to live in New York. You can't be living in Virginia and doing that. Similarly, she has a rental property that has 5 units. She marked it as 4 units because there's a tax break if you have a 4-unit or less property, and there's not a tax break if you have 5.
Sorry, man.
Those on the right tend to get very excited about this. In a similar way, those on the left get excited about Donald Trump. But it's not an issue where we're taking taxpayer money and distorting policy or doing this away. It's a battle of forms and of lawfare. What did you check on a certain box when you submitted that in? And these seem to me like very pedantic, very low-level concerns. Maybe there's small fines and penalties that are involved with it. But overall, you know, this doesn't mark the true heart of corruption, the sort of scandals that we want to be concerned about. It certainly doesn't rise to the level of Scalos or Silver that we talked about earlier, where we're distorting funds that are available for cancer and where those might go, or how the treatment of tax appeals work in the state, or whether you have to hire a particular assemblyman's son just so you can work in New York.
Sure.
Those are real issues. What you mark on a form that goes to a bank, what you submit on tax filings, that's fairly low level. It's red meat for tribalistic concerns, I think. But it's all being duked out. The DOJ is now investigating Letitia James over this issue. The appeal for Donald Trump is ongoing about the business affairs. They're mirror images of the same issue.
You think they're similar? They carry the same weight?
Yeah, which is to say, not very much. But they make for good political drama, and people really like these stories. So we're at the Dinkins Building, former mayor of New York, and as you can see on the sign, the home of citywide administrative services. So your bureaucratic nest is right here. I am usually prone not to be too fond of bureaucrats, but I'm going to show an element of good faith here and say they did a really good job in looking at abusive spending that happened during COVID and during the recent asylum migrant crisis in New York. City of New York awarded a $482 million contract to a company called DocGo, D-O-C-G-O. And this was to provide emergency migrant housing, to buy up hotel spaces, hotel rooms, and the like. Right at the start of this, the comptroller of New York had concerns because DocGo barely had any business operations or experience and was a new entry. It was politically connected to actors in New York City. And New York decided that it would suspend all the usual rules that we have for competitive bidding and simply award it to somebody who looked good, well, somebody who was connected.
Right.
That studies that have gone into this show that about 80% of that $482 million, so about $500 million, were for unused rooms, were for hotels just sitting empty with not a single migrant in them, and a whole lot of money that came into DocGo. Similarly, there was another organization running an operation. It got a $287 million contract. That ballooned to $987 million, almost $1 billion. And similar findings of suspicious spending, unused hotel rooms, a public facade of we're here to help the migrants and provide asylum resources when nothing was being delivered. And that was done by actual, and I'll give them credit this time, hardworking bureaucrats in the Dinkins building.
Do you have any names? Can we do any shout-outs?
I don't have any particular names, but similar thing happened during the COVID era. They dug into the receipts and they examined the spending that went on and all the unused material and the overbuying of masks, ventilators from politically connected vendors who went through no competitive bidding. So how did this all happen? Again, we had the 1870s, we had the 1960s and 1970s, we had real reforms, we put real teeth in, we were going to stop this, it was going to be the end of corruption. Well, we left a loophole, and what we said in New York was that if there is an emergency, well, we can put these rules aside. So as soon as government comes together and says emergency, then all the competitive bidding, all the things that would show transparency for spending go out the door. And what we're left with is people who are politically connected saying, I'll put together an LLC. I've got something here, and I don't know, it's going to cost $500 million. Does that sound good? Sounds good. Let's go do it. And this is literally what happened with .go on the ground. So we're looking at this now, and again, New York's doing what New York has done every 70, 100 years or so. It has a reflective eye on it, saying, okay, maybe there are emergencies, but that doesn't mean that you should be able to spend money like a drunken sailor for a year. Let's limit it to maybe a month. That's what they're thinking about right now. We'll give you emergency powers for a month, then you got to comply with the law. Show us that this is necessary, show us that it's a truly competitive bid compared to other people, etc. This is all fairly recent, the revelation, so they may be investigating. There could be grand jury investigations going on for defrauding government. There's plenty of angles that you could use to prosecute this. So that's a stay tuned thing. And one of the criticisms by some commenters from the Chicago video is, why are you talking about corruption from so long ago? Well, it takes so long for these cases to go through. And so I can't tell you right now about whether or not we're going to see legal action on .go. That's all happening, if it is happening, behind closed, impaneled grand jury doors, and nobody knows anything about that. We might know in 2-4 years from now the story about .go, about COVID spending, about the asylum migrant status and all that. What we do know is that at least good governance folks in New York are starting to say, yeah, we can't give that broad of a grant of spending authority just because government says emergency. More problems are going to pop up. Now we have laws in place that say if you abuse the public trust and do these things, you lose your New York State pension. That seems common sense. You know, it's an interesting city. It offers its own state-funded healthcare system. It has extensive social spending that many cities in America don't have. But then they also have a pretty good policing unit on top of it, tracking down that money and making sure that it's not spent in massively corrupt ways. Unlike Chicago, when we walked through it and I talked about a city charter, right, that has no definitions of what's wrong, and councilmen that had unlimited power. They're on the right track, so I'm optimistic.
That's good to hear, because I didn't think that was going to be the story today.
Yeah. No,
I thought it was going to be more like Chicago. So
Yeah,
this actually had a little bit of an optimistic flair to it.
As long as you can appreciate, a lot of people want a magic solution that's going to stop corruption and it's gone and we don't have to think about it.
Sure.
If you can go back to Roman times going forward, you can follow every Western city-state. As long as there's been humans around, there's charlatans, thieves, and folks who are purloining the public purse, and we gotta stay on top of it and keep hammering it. Some cities, like New York, are really great at doing that.
That's great to hear.
Other cities like Chicago.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And guys, I want you to know Benjamin has an excellent channel about all sorts of law-related, First Amendment-related topics. Is that how you classify it?
Yeah, constitutional law.
Constitutional law. And the most recent video was about gerrymandering.
Yeah.
But all sorts of interesting topics. Benjamin goes into the details extremely well. Yeah. Very thorough. Check it out down below in the link here. Thanks for coming along on that journey. Until the next one.